the anti-vaxxers. They are putting at risk their own kids, and they're putting at risk our kids as well. And those people are putting us all at risk. Aaron O'Toole is siding with them instead of with Canadians who did their part and stepped up. Canadians have shown it in being there for each other. And I am not going to back down no matter how many of them show up to try and shout us down. So shame on you, Aaron O'Toole. You need to condemn those people. And that means we're going to work on vaccination certifications, on vaccination passports.
And that we work with the provinces on vaccine certifications.
If you want to get on a plane or a train in the coming months, you're going to have to be fully vaccinated. Now is the time for people who are still resistant to getting vaccinated, that there will be consequences for those people in not being able to go to a gym or a restaurant, not being able to go to a movie theater, not being able to get on a train or a plane.
Our plans to make sure that anyone on a plane or train is vaccinated, that anyone in the federal public service gets vaccinated.
And we know that the way to get through this as well is to make sure that people can go into non-essential businesses and feel safe that they're not going to get catch COVID from someone next to them.
We all have an opportunity to get back a little more to normal. Except that those people who have not yet chosen to get vaccinated are putting all this at risk.
The risk posed to all of us by unvaccinated people?
Le refus de tempérer à cet ordre vous rend passible d'une amende pouvant aller de 1 000 à 6 000 $.
Not only are they putting at risk our kids who are still too young to get vaccinated. I have a 7-year-old who started in grade 2 just earlier this week. Very excited about it, but he's vulnerable. All of us, even if we did the right things and got vaccinated, are at risk of lockdowns because of future waves of unvaccinated.
Having us risk more lockdowns because they haven't chosen to get vaccinated yet.
Please, everyone, if we can be respectful and we can leave.
Piece of shit! Transphobic piece of shit! Transphobic piece of shit! Transphobic, where we draw the line. This is where.
In September, the federal government posted a call for expressions of interest for contractors to supply, provide, and manage quarantine isolation camps throughout every province and every territory in Canada. These quarantine isolation camps, however, are not limited to people with COVID, but provide a wide latitude for many people to be detained. Surely this government is aware of the intentions to build these isolation camps from coast to coast. And my question to the Premier is, how many of these
Hey, troops, I'm just jumping in here. I don't know what's going on. It just booted me out of the studio. So I'm trying to power through and get this video going again because I'm not due to go live really for, well, about another 6 minutes. I don't want to get going early in case people are still trying to join. Well, okay, I just lost all my stuff. I don't know what's going on with StreamYard tonight, folks, but I guess we're live now, so let's power through this thing. Yeah, my name is Jeff Evely. I'm the Ops Sgt-Maj with Veterans for Freedom, which is a fairly unofficial title. I just kind of do the podcast around here. And I just wanted to go live real quick. I got a lot. There's so much going on, and I just kind of want to get some ideas out there. And I will be back in a couple hours. Again, I have a special guest coming on tonight to talk a little bit more about the legality of firearms ownership in Canada. So that should be really good. So I'll just give you guys another share here because I just kind of lost everything. It just dropped out on me. And I'm going to kick this off with some news about the state of the force. And I guess I'll call it the force. I don't want to call it the military because that's not what it is. It's a dog and pony show. My whole thing right now is just trying not to be complicit in this wrongdoing, this harm that's going to be done, sending that force into any kind of a conflict whatsoever. You're just sending lambs to the slaughter. Okay. So, yeah, I don't want to call it a military and give it that kind of air of legitimacy that it needs to conduct the slaughter. So count me out, guys. Just go ahead and keep poking that Russian bear, by the way. Not that they don't have 20 nuclear icebreakers. I wonder who they're pointed at. Anybody else share a border with Russia other than Ukraine? Maybe us? Yeah. So here we have the Toronto Star. Now, I wanted to put this out there because I was actually surprised. I was pleasantly surprised to see something like this coming from the Toronto Star. So, as you may or may not know, in the biz, we call the Toronto Star the Toronto Red Star, as in the Red Communist Star. Here we have something that's actually pretty darn critical of Canada's government, the Liberal government, the hand that feeds them right now. So that's, we got to take them breaks where we can get them, I guess. Let's count our small victories as we go. And here we go. It's called ignored by a succession of governments, Canada's military is now a tiny, under-equipped, and demoralized force. In accepting this, we have deluded ourselves in numerous ways. Thank you. In practical terms, we can no longer even maintain the bogus peacekeeping myth. Now, peacekeeping was always a myth. That was really about the beach parties and having affairs. At least that's what I saw when I came in. And that's what my supervisor did in Afghanistan and my general as well. They had affairs, and it wasn't the fact that the All right, I'm coming in for a second time. So this StreamYard's kicking me out tonight for some reason. Is this suspicious? I don't know. It's never happened before, so I'll take it as a one-off. One-off is that's only an incident after all, and 2 is a coincident, 3 is a pattern, 4 is a trend. All right. So back to the article, and guys, bear with me, I'll keep going. I'm a fighter, so I don't know what's going on with the connection tonight. Doesn't appear to be my router. I don't see any problem there, and it's a hard line, so it's a Cat6 cable. It's not Wi-Fi or anything like that, so it's just a Cat6 to the router and out to fiber, so there's no reason for me to be having any kind of internet issues like this in terms of hardware. So anyway, I see I left off, I think, at the subtitle here, which is in accepting this, we have deluded ourselves in numerous ways. In practical terms, we no longer even maintain the bogus peacekeeping myth. And yeah, I was kind of saying that, I didn't, I don't know. I don't really know what went on back in the decade of darkness. I just kind of caught it at the very tail end. I came in January of 2001. And I'll tell you something, I just attended a funeral for the chief warrant officer that I had at the time. And it was a hard issue. And, of course, everybody's kind of avoiding that. But somebody came up to me that I knew back then who just kind of came into that unit at the exact same time or just a month behind me or something like that. And she just kind of like didn't even butter it up or nothing, didn't try to broach the subject gently. She was just like, I wanted to quit as soon as I hit the ground. And I was like, yeah, me too. But anyway, I told her right there, I was like, I stayed for spite. That was what it was. I looked around at what I saw and I was like, people sleeping in through their PT and they're fat and their uniforms are garbage and they got BO. And I was just like, yeah, okay. Like, I know you guys don't want me around, but I'm going to stay for spite. Because I don't see any reason why you guys should get all these great opportunities and that early pension and not me. So that's what I did. I did my 20 and now I'm back. And it was a medical release. But really, it was time to go. So anyway, into the article here. As retired Supreme Court Justice Louis Arbour has convincingly stated, the Canadian Armed Forces do indeed have serious issues such as sexual misconduct that need immediate correction. I'm going to point out that that's predominantly the boomer generation. Every generation has its issues, of course, but we're not talking about the same thing as we were back in the 80s and 90s. It's not about quid pro quo. That's where it's, if you want to keep this job, you better let me put something in your body. Which is what General Iyer just did to the whole force. And it's not that kind of stuff anymore. It's more about, requests for dates from unattractive people. The verbiage that they use in the policy to define sexual misconduct is so broad that it includes unwanted sexual advances. So that's as Jordan Peterson points out, the entire purpose of the advance is to discover whether or not it Okay, punted me out again. I switched browsers this time before coming back in. Pardon me, folks. Everybody got me now? So yeah, okay, here's Ken. Come on, Cease, knock it off, please. Yeah, we're just trying to have these are news articles. I'm not sharing any government secrets here, and nor would I. Where did I leave off here? So, so the sexual misconduct thing, we're not talking about the same standards anymore because, as the boomer generation is so fond of saying to the rest of us, we're all held to a higher standard, by which they mean everybody coming up after them is held to a higher standard than they were. This issue, such as sexual misconduct, that need immediate correction. Most of those guys are gone, the generals and stuff. That's why you see all the generals going down right now. However, we should look further than most obvious problems that are evident today. Despite the issues assailing the military, there is much that is good about the institution. In rebuilding and correcting the nation's defense capabilities, we would be wise to remember this and focus on fixing its fundamental shortcomings. Since the 1960s, Canada has been steadily chiseling away at its military, promising increasing efficiencies with diminished spending. Now we find ourselves with a tiny, under-equipped, and demoralized force that has largely been reduced to providing token forces and symbolic roles. The Army is forced to cannibalize and break up teams in its under-strength units to maintain half of a patchily equipped battle group in Latvia. The Air Force and Navy, woefully short of aircraft, ships, and trained crews are forced to wait decades to replace obsolete and worn-out equipment with ever fewer numbers. Yeah, we had an expression once about how we we buy the best of obsolete American technology from the British. And there was something else I wanted to comment on here. Chiseling away efficiencies. Token and symbolic roles. Okay, so I wanted to highlight the token forces in symbolic roles comment, because this is much more sinister, I think, than people realize. My deployment in Iraq, I mean, I remember I redeployed a guy. He was a young guy. I think he was 27 or something, to a different location. And when he got to the other end, the logistics officer was calling me up, telling me not to send people in these military helicopters across hostile territory where ISIS has freedom of movement, with their rifles. And the reasoning was that if I did that, that he would have to make an entry in the tracking system there, DRIMIS, which everybody hates, I know, but I'm like, you're making an awful lot of money to make that transaction. And I mean, if the system is cumbersome, then you should take it up the chain, right? Okay. So how many times was that? 3. So that's a pattern. Yeah, this is unfortunate, guys. I don't know what's going on with my, it doesn't appear to be my connection. It doesn't appear to be my equipment. I switch browsers. I think I'm just going to keep bashing on here, guys. But all right, I'll give you another share screen here. Set that up again. Give you the audio, which I almost never do. And we're back. Okay, token forces and symbolic roles. Yeah, my last deployment, we were the only guys walking around without at least a sidearm. All the other militaries are serious professional militaries, so they were allowed to carry their sidearms around in the base that I was on at the time. And we weren't. The rumor, of course, was that some chief from CJOC came down with a Sig Sauer that he wasn't qualified on and forgot to decock and shot himself in the leg. So now the rest of us, it's called blanket punishments for all, folks. That's how it works. So because one guy made a mistake, we're all morons. That's the standard. Okay, so the Army is forced to cannibalize and break up teams in understrength units to maintain half of a partially equipped battle group in Latvia. I read that. Canada's military has been ignored and marginalized by a succession of governments. In accepting this, we have deluded ourselves in numerous ways. We have been Am I here? It just did another spin there. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Okay. In accepting this, we've deluded ourselves in numerous ways. We have been gullibly believed that our strengths lie in peacekeeping prowess, conveniently ignoring the fact that peacekeeping competencies are based in fighting proficiency, which in turn is grounded in sound leadership and effective in patient management. That's a pretty fair statement, I think. The fighting proficiency part, you're not going to be able to keep any peace if there's no credible threat of force being applied. So we need those fighting proficiencies in order to be credible. We are a wealthy G7 nation, and we are expected to behave like one. In defending our anemic and undersized military, politicians frequently tell us Canada has always punched above its weight. And this is indisputably true, but that kind of answer deliberately evades the crux of the problem. Nobody knows what the Canadian forces seriously impugn. Nobody who knows the Canadian No problem. Okay, looks like I'm back here, and I'm checking other pages and stuff, and it seems to be working. It is kind of just happening on StreamYard right now. So it's not my connection. It's not even the browser, because I can look at other web pages and stuff. But anyway, it's really jacking up my groove here, guys. But carry on. So I think I scrolled around a bit. But let's not kid ourselves. In practical terms, we can no longer even maintain the bogus peacekeeping myth. The armed forces have now atrophied to the extent that we can no longer field and sustain major unit for any kind of operation abroad. We are a wealthy G7 nation. We are expected to behave like one. In defending our anemic, undersized military, politicians frequently tell us okay, I'm getting an awful lot of glitches here, and don't know why that is. I'm just trying. Connection unstable. No, I'm not on Wi-Fi, and my router is working, and all of my other pages are working. There's StreamYard, so not sure what's up with that. If it's perpetually starved, any organization or body is susceptible to a range of related follow-on pathologies. Unsurprisingly, our military is no different. One of the most insidious long-term effects of underfunding is that serving in the armed forces is viewed as a less than attractive career. It's increasingly difficult to compete for quality recruits. With time, the overall leadership inexorably weakens. The problem rises from the roots. If we are to fix current and future institutional problems, which today have emerged as abusive and exploitive behavior, we have to improve the quality of the leadership. Thank you. Thank you for pointing out that it is the leadership and not the troops. It really is, and that is true across the board of all the institutions. This is a good statement about with time, the overall leadership inexorably weakens, and we're talking about succession planning here. So it's about, if we're not attracting quality recruits today, then 40 years from now, or whatever, 30 years from now, the people running the institution are going to be the same people, right? They're not going to be quality people. Now, our enemies understand this, and I can't help but think, especially in light of the Sidewinder and to a great degree of success, subverting us in Canada, back going all the way back to the 90s, how much of that influence was used to soften up the military, in this way, so that it's not about beating us today, but it's about weakening us over time, so that we'll be defenseless, when the kids that they won't let watch the TikTok they show in America, like they don't have TikTok in China, right? Like everything on TikTok there is about freaking space travel and stuff. It's inspiring to kids. It's not, deranging them and encouraging. They all want to be astronauts. So, so it's that kind of thing. And I think I just lost the screen share there, but I can see myself. So I'm just going to keep reading here since we're all still here. Far from wanting to return to the comforts of the past, the armed forces have to be maintained in real conflict. Is changing at a bewildering pace. Military operations are increasingly conducted at a faster pace in an environment of greater increasingly dispersed and ubiquitous battlefields, network-centric command control, artificial intelligence, robotics, quantum computing, and hypersonic weapons, and new dimensions of informational and psychological operations will all place greater demands on on the institution and individuals. Yeah, that's again all very good. Just a couple of comments to throw in here. The cyber conflict is really hot, and the Russians are kind of always at it, and the Chinese have really ramped things up lately. And there was a lot. Excuse me. A lot before I got a lot of the effort was going into whether they stood up a whole new trade of cyber warriors and so on and so forth. But the problem that we keep running up against still is the same old, this is the way we've always done it, especially around Ottawa, the nepotism in the politics that they just inflict on the military that degrades our operational effectiveness. Well, you know, you can't create a position for a computer services level 3 guy, like a public servant, computer services, and skate through without you know, a CBC proficiency in French. And it's like, no, guys, we don't need this guy to speak French. We just need him to speak, you know, code, Python, basic, that kind of thing. And they're like, you know, like we really don't care. He could speak freaking Romanian for all I care, you know, as long as he can do cyber. And they're like, well, no, that's a supervisory position because it's a CS3 and it's this salary level. So if he's a supervisor, then he needs to be proficient at this level in Ottawa, especially in Ottawa. And everywhere else in the country, it'll be a lower level. But okay, a little glitchy again. This is a rough night, but okay, we'll keep going. So, and the artificial intelligence, that's huge. If they get it first, we're done. So I know Elon Musk has been warning everybody, but I'm always saying, Elon, I don't think you understand. Like, if they get it first on the other side, it's even worse. So we got to make sure that we get there first. And the same thing with quantum computing. You know, and the hypersonic weapons, they're already beating us. Nobody wants to talk about that. They're beating the crap out of us in hypersonic missiles. So yeah, it's about just kind really come every point of contact with the Chinese is a point of exploitation. Yet history provides Canada as a reliable guide to the future. The constants in warfare remain timeless. Soldiers, sailors, and aviators must have confidence in their leaders, both military and civilian. What we often have been referred to as the military virtues: morale, courage, trust, loyalty, discipline, integrity, fair-mindedness, commitment, teamwork, and respect. They just made that up. There's an ethics program for this stuff. Are qualities that have to be painstakingly cultivated. There are not anyone's national characteristics. They can't be implemented with quick fix, gimmicky solutions to camouflage budget cuts. Yeah, just fire the boomers. That's all you got to do. We would be foolish in the extreme if we tried to remedy today's problems without calculating what the future will demand for us. We know the fundamental problems that have to be addressed. Do we have the resolve to act? Well, that's a good question. I mean, you know my answer. I feel like I have a very easily implemented solution that would make all of those problems disappear overnight. Okay, so here we have the Navy, and these are the Arctic patrol ships. It says sailors provided with on new Arctic patrol ships. Now, this is from like last week, I think, but I think it kind of fits into this, so I just thought I'd it says drinking water on board a Canadian Navy's new fleet of Arctic patrol ships is believed to be contaminated with lead, forcing the military to provide crews with bottled water. So these are new ships too. The lack of drinking water on the Arctic and offshore patrol ships is the latest problem associated with the $4 billion program. And I'm sure that this is all just kind of the result of the nepotism in Canada, you know, these half-ass kind of workmanship, because, you know, it's the government's friends building all this stuff. So An investigation has revealed that some fittings and valves on the potable water system were manufactured from alloys that exceeded the allowable amount of lead, National Defense has confirmed. Yeah, it's definitely CAHN, Ken. I'm convinced. And I don't know, it is just kind of StreamYard, so it's weird. Let me see now. So, So Royal Canadian Navy sailors contacted this newspaper to provide details of the potentially lead-contaminated water, as they believed the Navy and National Defense were trying to hide the problem from the public. Good job, guys. Good job. Yeah, I'm proud of the new recruits, the folks that are coming up through the ranks now. It's the millennials. They're the civic-minded generation. They follow the hero archetype. So same generational archetypes as the greatest generation that won the Second World War. And yeah, they're the good kids generation. We're kind of Gen X is kind of like the throwaway generation, and then everybody goes, "Oh yeah, geez, I guess you got to take care of kids," and then there is the Royal Canadian Navy sales. Information about the water problems was later confirmed by National Defense. Quote, acceptance tests of HMCS Harry DeWolf indicated concerns with water quality, close quote. The department noted in its statement. Quote, in particular, the test demonstrated a possibility of accumulated lead contamination in the water, especially in areas where the water remains stagnant, close quote. Quote, an investigation ensued revealing that some fittings and valves on the potable water system are manufactured from alloys that exceed the lead requirements specified in the build contract, close quote, the statement added. National Defense noted that since safety of military personnel is a priority, the Canadian Forces is now conducting regular water testing and providing bottled water for the crews on HMCS Harry DeWolf and HMCS Marguerite Brook. Similar measures will be put in place for HMCS Max Bernays, which has not yet started operations. If indeed the same will be done for HMCS William Hall, which will be delivered in the fall of 2023. So we didn't need to take delivery of these ships. They're already toast. They're crap. Look at this. Wonderful. Thanks, Irving. Irving Shipbuilding. And this is the thing. These are Navy ships. Like, these are people's lives we're talking about here, man. Come on. What are you doing? Cutting corners on potable water systems. Irving Ship, like, these are Arctic patrol ships, and we're poking that Russian bear. Irving Shipbuilding has come up with a solution to install a filtration system as well as potentially to replace the problematic fittings and valves, National Defense noted in its statement. Taxpayers, however, could end up paying extra for that, even though the department acknowledged that Irving used the fittings and valves manufactured from alloys that exceeded lead requirements outlined in the build contract. Negotiations on who pays is currently under discussion, according to National Defense. Yeah, it's okay. As long as you say you're sorry, then we'll know you've learned your lesson. Going forward, new valves will be installed in the other Arctic and offshore patrol ships to be built by Irving. Irving spokesman Mary Keith said that, quote, Canada and Irving Shipbuilding have been working together to address design issues that, under certain conditions, could contribute to degradation of potable water systems on delivered ships. Close quote. So, she noted the remaining 4 AOPS to be built for the Navy and the Canadian Coast Guard, quote, have been resigned to eliminate the potential for degradation of these systems and therefore the need for filters. So not replacement of the fittings, but filters. Okay. Keith stated Irving is, quote, committed to the safety of Canadian sailors on the ships we build and maintain for the Navy, close quote. Poisoning them. The water problem is the latest issue to hit the Arctic offshore patrol ships fleet. Last week, this newspaper reported the HMCS Harry DeWolf will be out of service until April because of ongoing mechanical problems, but the military doesn't yet have an idea of how much repairs are going to cost taxpayers. In addition, HMCS Max Bernay was accepted in September from Irving Shipbuilding, even though a system that allows the vessel to maneuver wasn't functioning properly. Good Lord. why are we not like imposing, serious financial penalties for this stuff? Like they better be paying for this, man. This is absurd. We're getting ripped off. We're getting ripped off left, right, and center, and there are no consequences and no accountability for anybody. The repairs to HMCS Harry DeWolf won't be covered by Irving Shipbuilding because the warranty for the company's workmanship on the vessel delivered in 2020 was only for 1 year, says Jessica. Who the hell let them get away with that? Limerand, a Department of National Defense spokesperson. So there's no skin in the game on the other side, on our side. None of these people have any skin in the game, and they're never going to face any consequences for mismanagement of the such as this on this contract. The problems are affecting the vessel's 4 main diesel generators that provide electrical power and ship propulsion. HMCS Harry DeWolf left Halifax on August 15th for an Arctic exercise, but already one of his main diesel generators was inoperable. Several days later, when the ship was off the east coast of Newfoundland and Labrador, another of the main diesel generators failed, forcing a return to Halifax. Now, this is really bad, man. We can't even manage like a little domestic waters mission. I mean, Russians just licking their chops at us over the pole there. That big Russian bear is just salivating like Pavlov's dogs with this article. National Defense is now conducting a technical investigation to try to figure out the problem, and repairs will be made at the taxpayers' expense. Quote, as the repairs are ongoing, we don't yet have a full estimated cost, close quote, Limerad said. Quote, it is expected that the HMCS Harry DeWolf will return to operations in April of 2023, close quote. Limerand also confirmed HMCS Max Bernay was docked on November 23rd to deal with the problem with the vessel's bow thruster. The bow thruster enables the ship to fine-tune its positioning during specific station-keeping maneuvers, according to NAV. Stuff is it's good to go. Let's check on some videos here. Yeah, it's loading. Okay, all right, I'm back. I was just checking another browser tab there to see if I still have connectivity, but it does seem to be local to StreamYard. So where did I leave off here? So the problem with the bow thruster was known prior to the Royal Canadian Navy's decision to accept delivery of the vessel from Irving to ship. Why are we doing this? Let me see. Okay. In October 2020, the Chronicle Herald newspaper reported HMCS Harry DeWolf was forced to return to port after its freshwater generator and communication system failed. It was while the ship was docked that the crew also found the cooling pumps on 2 of the ship's 4 diesel generators had broken. HMCS Harry DeWolf was officially delivered by Irving to the Navy on July 31st, 2020. Like, these are young people's lives, man. We're sending people out into harm's way in these things. Like, they're taking huge risks going up north. These are for northern patrols. Like, oh my God, it's terrible to think of, the undue risk we're imposing on these people. The AOPS program over the years faced delays and cost increases. Under the original timetable, the first AOPS was to be delivered in 2013, with Arctic operations set for 2015. But that ship wasn't delivered to Canada until 2020. Well done, guys. In January 2015, the federal government announced it had awarded Irving Shipbuilding a $2.6 billion contract to build 5 AOPS. In 2018, that deal was expanded to add a 6th vessel. National Defense currently lists the project as costing taxpayers a little more than $4.3 billion. And these are the guys that basically, called their friends up in the Liberal government to throw, Admiral Norman under the bus. Because he awarded a contract. He managed to get a sole source contract awarded to get the refuelers that the Navy needed to maintain its forward ops capability. I mean, it's just a Coast Guard without those things. And they tried to get in the way. This was Irving that did all this stuff, right? And well, that's where it started. They complained about it, and then that was the whole big deal there. They're like, oh no, we got to get all the contracts, all for Irving, all for Boomer. Unreal. In 2017, the Senate Defense Committee raised concerns about the vessel's capabilities. Quote, this concern is based on the fact that these ships cannot operate in ice more than a meter thick, are slower than a BC ferry, can only operate in the Arctic from June to October, and will require a Coast Guard escort in the northern waters. Close quote. The senators pointed out in their report, quote, these limitations are troubling and raise the question of whether the taxpayers are receiving value for the money spent. No, we don't have a Navy. Not from the sounds of it. We paid to get some Navy ships, and we don't have any. In the past, federal bureaucrats have been sensitive about news coverage of AOPS issues. In March 2019, officials with National Defense and Public Services and Procurement Canada warned Irving this newspaper was asking questions about problems with welds on the AOPS. Irving, in turn, threatened this newspaper with legal action. Oh, my God. National Defense, however, later confirmed that there had been minor issues with welding on the AOPS, and the article was published. No lawsuit was filed. Yeah, okay. So sounds like Irving is trading our young people's blood for money. Typical, I guess, in Canada. Yeah, pardon me. Okay, so this is some good news. I thought I would kind of turn things around, and I don't really know these guys very well. The C2C journal ideas lead, but it looks like a really good page. I was just checking out some of their other resources here and the topics that they're covering. Dispatches from the front, a Canadian volunteer in Ukraine. That looks interesting. So I might go back and check this out. But this is called The Wrath of CAHN, as in the Canadian Anti-Hate Network. And, a good title is always catches my attention. So I thought I'd give this a read, and it's pretty great. Okay, so it says Canada is among the world's most tolerant and peaceable countries. The Canadian Anti-Hate Network wants you to believe otherwise. However, working tirelessly to convince Canadians and their country is a seething hotbed of mostly white right-wing hate groups. John Klein lays bare the hypocrisy, intolerance, and damage done to individuals and free speech. A little glitchy, but the para was pretty good. I like these guys. You can't tell the haters without a program. For decades, the Southern Poverty Law Center has styled itself as an indispensable guide to what constitutes hatred in the United States. Its signature, quote, hate map, close quote, has long been cited in the media by commentators as objective and reliable reference points for measuring the worrisome growth of hate groups across America. And according to the SPLC, hate is always growing. The latest hate map puts number of active hate groups in the U.S. at 1,020, up by 70% since 2000. Another thing that's seemingly always growing is that the SPLC, its bank account. Thanks to its self-declared status as arbiter of American hate, and in conjunction with the highly sophisticated fundraising techniques, the group holds an astonishing $500 million in assets, making it one of America's richest nonprofit advocacy groups. These guys have been on my radar for since 2012, probably. I remember I used to follow a lot of this stuff. I was a single dad for a long time, and I got onto a little bit of the men's rights activist movement when it first came out. And then, I never took up that label or anything, or the MGTOW stuff. But there's some, ideas that are kind of good for navigating these difficult waters, so to speak. So, and they were always complaining about these guys, and I knew who these guys were. They were running a podcast called A Voice for Men, and it was for there was a qualified psychologist was one of the hosts and everything. So they were the guys who coined the phrase "take the red pill." And then the Matrix reference, and now everybody's using it. So yeah, I remember the SPLC from all those years ago. And when I saw anti-hate coming up, I was like, yeah, monkey see, monkey do. That's a real thing here in Canada. We see all the time. On the left, where they're always trying to outdo the Americans just a little bit later on. I say that we're one election cycle behind the Americans and just further down the road to serfdom, because the state is more all-encompassing here and our individual liberties are not as well protected. For decades, the Southern Poverty Law Center has styled itself as an indispensable guide. Okay, I think I read that. Despite such obvious trappings of success, the Alabama-based SPLC has lately found itself on the receiving end of sort of nasty accusations that typically made to others. Last year, the organization was rocked by several internal accusations of sexual impropriety and racism against co-founder and former chief litigator Morris Dees, who was fired that March. Dees, along the public face of the organization, as well as a member of the Direct Marketing Association's Hall of Fame for its masterful use of direct mail solicitations, was apparently fond of reminding his black female staffers how much he liked, quote, chocolate, close quote. Among other lewd remarks, as well as inappropriate touching, it was recently revealed that decades ago he faced an accusation of molesting his stepdaughter with a sex toy. So, you know, I know I have the boomers on my side who always All right, I'm back. Holy smokes. Yeah, typical boomer male. So think Joe Biden, right? Can't keep his hands to himself. Joe Biden, of course, has his daughter had a journal entry there that was pretty sick stuff. A journal entry there where you know, she remembers as a little girl showering with her dad in truly you know, sort of inappropriate way. Yeah, I mean, and look at this guy. This is the guy who's this is a constituent of evil, I believe. It's they project their evil onto us, and you know, I swear, like, I could go on and on about that, but just watch for the projection, guys. Especially when it comes to the firearms, especially when the boomer male is saying, you're the one who can't be trusted with the firearms, give them to me, the Somalia affair guy. Yeah, right. Beyond the damaging hypocrisy of an anti-hate group being accused of a sexist and racist behavior, SPLC has also been sued by several organizations and individuals claiming they were maliciously and erroneously targeted as, quote, haters, close quote. And in the case of Muslim reformer and counter-extremist Majid Nawaz, has had to pay out millions of dollars. This is a remarkable fact considering the legal hurdle for defamation in the US is nearly insurmountable. Yeah, they got free speech up the wazoo down there. So yeah, the defamation threshold is high. Majid Nawaz is really great. I've been tracking him for a lot of years. He co-wrote a book back in the day with Sam Harris. The title is escaping right now, but he's a Muslim reformer. He's an Islamic reformer. Really interesting story. He was a radical who did a little time in an Egyptian prison, and he's been a reformer ever since. He advocates for a reformation in Islam, as in something akin to Lutheranism, because there is no Luther in Islam. And I think I think he's on to something. I really do, because that's kind of the difference between the Old Testament and the New, is we stopped following the ways of the elder prophets that you see, you know, whether it's Yahweh, Abraham, Moses, or Muhammad. Every time that elder prophet figure shows up, it's, you know, it's democide effectively. And what happens in the New Testament is we stop following the way of the elder prophet and start following the way of the midlife nomad. In particular, the crucifixion demigod, which does appear, is replete throughout the ancient world. I think what the Council in Nicaea was trying to do, was it Mithra that they were following in Rome? I think it was. I think that was the one. I think they were trying to hand jam that into the Jewish religion. I'm an atheist, by the way, guys. Yeah, I know a lot of people are religious too, but it's a different perspective. So, you know, take it for what it's worth. I'm looking at it as like literature, something like I would look at George Orwell. And anyway, yeah, so we started following the way of the midlife nomad, and Luther was a midlife nomad, and here we have a Majid Nawaz who's a midlife nomad. This guy's a Gen Xer, right? And he's advocating for a reformation in akin to Lutheranism in Islam. So stop following the ways of the elder prophet and start following the ways of the midlife nomad. So I think it's, for that reason, that's about as viable as it gets when you're talking about reforming a religion. I think it's pretty neat to think about. The reputation of the SPLC's much cited hate map has also been seriously damaged in other ways. A recent insider's account of the New Yorker alleges that the SPLC's hate data has been deliberately exaggerated in order to coax donations from, quote, gullible northern liberals, close quote. And the far left magazine Current Affairs devastatingly declared that the SPLC, quote, is a scam. It finds as much hate as possible in order to make as much money as possible. That's well put. And there is this kind of this kind of thing. This cosmopolitanism is I think, a real issue for our modern societies that we haven't really figured out yet. We haven't really built any safeguards against that kind of thing. And that's the kind of thing that Huxley, I think, really narrowed in on there really well. The cosmopolitanism of the people in the echo chamber. There's, this kind of exploitation going on around all around them, and they're just kind of numb to it. And if they start feeling a little guilty, well, just take some drugs and go to an orgy. And he also highlighted the element there of the sexualization of children very well too. That is, as far as I can tell, that is a constituent. It's like a constituent of evil. It's common in tyrannies, particularly in the Middle East. It was very common in Afghanistan, still is to this day. That's the kind of stuff you get, with the old ways, I'll say. So while the reek of hypocrisy was highly inconvenient, the allegations of, quote, hate inflation, close quote, undermined the group's very legitimacy. The confluence of internal crises and external criticisms has prompted nearly every top SPCL official to abruptly leave the group. Twitter to drop the SPLC as one of its hate monitoring and, quote, safety partners, and a U.S. senator to request the IRS investigate its nonprofit status. Nice. In short, the SPLC's carefully crafted public image as a virtuous hate fighter has been shredded. It hardly seems a model to emulate, yet that's exactly what the fledgling Canadian anti-hate network is doing. Wrath of CAHN. I like it. Canada's SPLC. Well, they're not making it easy for me, folks, but like I said, I'm a fighter. So I'm just going to my hardware. I'm going to everything here, but I just can't seem to find the root of the issue. But all right, Canada's SPLC. CAHN began operations in 2018. Okay, so CAHN began operations early 2018, building itself as a, quote, independent nonprofit organization made up of Canada's leading experts and researchers on hate groups and hate crimes, close quote. Its mandate, according to CAHN's website, is, quote, is to monitor research and counter hate groups by providing education. It's to destroy enemies of the left. Okay, that's what these hate groups or hate monitoring groups are for. It's for destroying the enemies of the left. These are commies, and propaganda. Okay, is something that manipulates by your emotion. It appeals to your emotion, and that's what these guys are doing. Is they're agents of chaos. Okay, they're whipping up frenzied mobs by deranging people into their into highly emotional states. And it's insidious. It's absolutely insidious. And it makes no bones about the inspiration for its domestic anti-hate crusade. In a letter to the House of Commons Committee introducing itself to Canadian parliamentarians last April, CAHN claimed to be, quote, modeled after and supported by the esteemed Southern Poverty Law Center in the United States, close quote. The letter was delivered several weeks after the no longer esteemed Dees was fired for allegations of sexual and racist misconduct. Oh, yeah, a snake eating its own tail. CAHN claimed to be modeled after and supported by the esteemed Southern Poverty Law Center in the United States, close quote. The letter was delivered to Parliament several weeks after the SPLC's no longer esteemed co-founder Dees was fired for allegations of sexual and racial misconduct. CAHN was chaired by Bernie Farber, well-known Canadian media circles for an earlier career as CEO of the Canadian Jewish Congress. Other key members of the organization include Executive Director Evan Bolgard, a formal special assistant to Toronto Mayor and John Tory, controversial anti-hate lawyer Richard Warman, and Ontario Institute of Technology professor Barbara Perry. So these are all the kind of the people that just want to destroy Canadians' lives for wanting other generations to have wealth. The first necessary step for the following of the SPLC's path to establish CAHN shit. There we go. Holy smokes. I have to swear at it. Okay. Group bubbles may savvy use of social media for, the first necessary step in following the SPLC's path to establish CAHN as a useful source of hate information in Canada, CAHN's principles make them readily available to media outlets eager to tell terrifying stories about the proliferation of hate groups in our midst. What is the most prolific hate group in Canada, by the way? What's the biggest one? Can you name it? I always like asking that question. The CBC and Global News appear to be the most ardent devotees of this service, although a wide range of publications at home and abroad avail themselves of CAHN's self-proclaimed expertise. In a particularly successful twist on its formula, CAHN board member Amira Okay, I'm back. I see you guys are still viewing here. I'm going to keep going if I still have viewers, and I don't know. It seems like this is coming with regularity now. What's the deal? Having inserted itself into the public discussions on hate, the next requirement in SPLC mimicry is to build a case that Canada is a seething hotbed of hatred. CAHN's website offers a veritable avalanche to reveal here. Neo-Nazi groups are lurking in central Canadian suburbs. Hate groups you've never heard of are organizing across Atlantic Canada. Gender identity hatred is simmering on the West Coast, and anti-Semitism is surging everywhere. Yeah, there's so much violence. Watch for these reports that they put out, because the standards for violence are often practical jokes. That's what I found. Like they will put a mass shooting in the same category as pork on a mosque porch or something like that. Like, and kids will do that. That's awful, of course, but it's not on the same level as a mass shooting. The recent federal election produced an apparent bumper crop of hate in Canada, with CAHN training its steely eyes on everything from Maxime Bernier's People's Party of Canada to the Yellow Vest movement, to an entirely insignificant collection of political no-hopers scattered across the country. As far as the total amount of hate in the country, Perry makes the stunning claim that approximately Canada. If true, this would give Canada a 3 times higher per capita incidence of hate groups in the U.S., despite the shock value of the actual list or any verifiable evidence that such a claim is accurate. In 2015, Perry claimed that there were only 100 hate groups in Canada. Holy smokes. And just, how many left-leaning hate groups are on that list, do you think? Haters everywhere, from PPC leader Bernier to the yellow vest. If this is the best CAHN can do, is there really that much hate in Canada? There you go. Tax revolt, no more, no to mass migration, close our borders, Canada first. Okay, so this isn't, and you know, the migration thing is a problem. You can't just bring people in the millions and not build any houses for them. Okay, that hurts the people here. So everybody's open and tolerant, and we see immigration as a tool that we can use for our shared prosperity for the people coming in and the people here. But you don't have to destroy. If you can't do it without destroying lives, like there's a homelessness problem in my small town now, and when I left here just over 20 years ago, there were homeless people. There was Lionel and Swivel. It was like everybody knew who they were, and now there's a shelter, and there are people out on the corners, just signs saying, please, food, anything, any help, this kind of thing. And I'm just like, man, some people are really hurting out there. And there's what's most devastating, I think, is the kind of apathy, which is something that Huxley, I think, demonstrated very well. Urging hate is in such great supply in this country is arguing hate is in such great supply in this country is quite a feat, given that Canada generally tops global surveys on racial tolerance and acceptance of immigration. And despite CAHN's breathless claims, open expressions of racism in Canada are actually quite rare. Increasingly, visible minorities and non-visible minorities are often report experiencing similar rates of discriminatory acts. And something new, there's some video coming out. There's always stuff coming out here and there about. You see the video of like people holding Palestinian flags and beating up Jews. What happened that time? Something in the Middle East was going down, and then we saw that kind of political violence in Canada. That's new. So yeah, there are downsides to mass immigration. The cults won't admit that, but that's just what it is. It's an article of faith, right? The most recent Statistics Canada survey of police reported hate crimes happily reveals a substantial year-over-year decline. Some places in Canada report precisely 0 hate crimes in 2018. Belleville, Ontario, and Trois-Rivières, Quebec were 2 such cities. Many other places recorded a mere handful. Examples are St. John's, Newfoundland with 1, Lethbridge, Alberta with 3, and Abbotsford, BC with 6. Out of 2.3 million criminal code violations that year, there were just 1,798 hate crimes, substantially less than 0.1% of the total. And the vast majority of these offenses were for mischief or graffiti. That's kind of what I just said, right? Actual violence is very, very hard to find. Fewer than 100 instances of hate-motivated assaults were recorded across the entire country in 2018, of which just 2 were homicides. So we live in such a peaceful, passive society. And we were talking about this with the firearms stuff too. We're talking about 300 firearms deaths, I think. So low, it's so low as to be statistically insignificant. In truth, Canada appears to be a country remarkable for its lack of hate. But you wouldn't know this from listening to the CAHN. In response to a recent happy news that the hate crimes fell sharply in 2018, CAHN complained that these new figures, quote, aren't showing the whole picture. Better hate crime statistics, close quote. What CAHN really wants, presumably, is bigger hate crime statistics. Said of the Jussie Smollett hate crime hoax in Chicago, quote, the demand for big exceeds the supply, close quote. Riley is African American, and we thank her for her support in standing up for some of like the least racist society that has ever existed. I mean, come on, it's absurd on its face. Judge, jury, and executioner. In addition to claiming hate is always on the rise, CAHN closely follows several other discernible SPLC tactics. Among these is the practicing of doxing. God, they're greasy. This is so greasy, and it really was the SPCL, I think, that's or the SPLC that started this. Doxing its enemies. Doxing involves publishing the details of contact information of organizations, businesses, and even private individuals deemed to be purveyors of hate. And that's heresy, by the way. The cult is actually the religion at this point. It's the religion of wokeness, or the technical term being postmodernism, and hate is the heresy in this religion, and it's being right-wing. The objective is to expose those it declares to be haters to the public, opprobrium or worse. Opprobrium, thank you, or worse. It can get out of hand. CAHN has doxed the founder of a far-right podcast who owns a small business in Thunder Bay. It also threatened to publish the names and addresses of members of the Canadian Nationalist Party in an unsuccessful attempt to derail their application for official party status with Elections Canada. And it published the names of hundreds of donors in the quixotic Toronto mayor campaign of Faith Goldie. Quote, naming and shaming is a part of our mandate, close quote. The group explains on its Twitter account. Good Lord. And yeah, Faith Goldie got totally sabotaged in her effort to campaign for mayor of Toronto. And John Tory owns, Rogers and all this stuff. And they wouldn't allow her to, it was a total abuse of authority. It's fascism, right? Like, you're supposed to get an equal opportunity at these kinds of things. And there were people who wouldn't allow her to put up billboards, and there were people who wouldn't allow her to get her message out via Rogers. And it was, it's just terrible, man. The state of things and how far we've fallen. In many cases, the only evidence of hate to be found amongst, okay, this is another part of the article, but in one horrifying example of naming and shaming potential consequences in the United States, Jessica Prohl-Smith, an editor of the Washington-based Family Research Council, a pro-marriage group opposed to homosexuality, found her life threatened by a gunman. In 2012, Floyd Lee Corks II shot and wounded a security guard at Smith's building before being subdued. He later admitted his actions were largely motivated by the SPLC's designation of Smith's employer as a hate group. Corkins was charged with domestic terrorism and is serving a 25-year prison sentence. Yeah. Smith recounted these events last summer in the memorably headlined USA Today article, quote, the Southern Poverty Law Center is a hate-based scam that nearly caused me to be murdered. Yeah, that's the game that they're playing. Okay, they're trying to get people murdered, just like Rachel Gilmore was trying to get James Topp murdered, and Global News is now the subject of a defamation lawsuit as a result of that. But yeah, that's what they're doing. They're calling these people the most hateful names they can possibly think of to stir up all this chaos. And a lot of people, they're just kind of barely sane to begin with. And the next thing you know, we have a vehicle attack on freedom protesters in Winnipeg. And, while James Topp is out there marching, she's doing the same thing again and saying that he's all these horrible things. And he's marching along the side of a highway. So what exactly is she trying to accomplish here, right? What does she expect to happen? So the SPLC and the CAHN thus grandly claim for themselves the overlapping roles of investigator, adjudicator, and punishment of actions, opinions, and IDs, and they determine to be wrong. Of course, all of these properly belong to government, and all are wisely separated in domestic states. No single organization should ever have such sweeping powers combined, let alone private groups and activists. CAHN's arrogance in assuming that all three bring it to mind an ancient Roman poet, Juvenal's famous aphorism, qui costiet ipsos custud. Who will guard the guards? Who will guard the guards themselves? Or who will watch the watchers, right? We say that in the West quite a bit. Who's supposed to watch the watchers? Well, the press is supposed to watch the watchers, but the watchers are paying the press now. So, they're all on the same team. And CAHN is, it's a witch hunt, okay? It's, the elder prophet reigning in the new theocracy of wokeism, aka postmodernism, and every time this happens, basically we get a witch hunt. Sometimes it goes the wrong way, like the witch hunts of Salem, and that's another one of those dates that you'll find on the 4-generational cycle if you just follow it back. The modern witch hunt is it's the millennials who finger us, right? It's the hero archetype that points and says, "I saw Goody Proctor." Worshiping the devil or dancing with the devil or whatever, Naomi, what's her name says there. Anyway, back to the article. A field guide to spotting hate in Canada. Bring your microscope. Often those targeted by CAHN or SPLC are not only insignificant and or obscure, but too weak or disorganized to fight back. One SPLC staffer noted D's favorited approach was to pick opponents who had, quote, poor education, limited funds, few, if any, good lawyers. It was like shooting fish in a barrel, close quote. During Farber's time at the head of the CJC, former Maclean's columnist Mark Stein described him as someone who'd spent most of his career fighting, quote, irrelevant, penniless, shaven-headed nobodies, close quote, as opposed to actual threats to minority rights and society as a whole. So this is just the lowest kind of scumbag we're talking about here, who's exploiting. He's a bully, right? He's exploiting people who are economically weaker than him, and he's using that his economic power that he's probably gained through one of these, hate scams, and he just keeps the whole scam going by bumping his numbers up and up and up. But all he's really doing is kind of pushing around people who can't defend themselves legally or economically. As with the SPLC's targets, and this is a diversity card for him. He gets to walk around like he's the special and perfect one who's in a position to lecture the rest of us on how to behave. As with the SPLC's targets, sometimes cons also push back. However, Canadian Nationalist Party leader Travis Patron also some time ago sent a cease and desist letter to cons Balgord demanding he retract, quote, false claims that his Canadian National Party is, quote, neo-Nazi, close quote, and that this is, quote, under investigation for alleged hate speech, close quote. If Patron's bank account permits, it will be up, Patron's bank account permits, it will be up to the courts to decide the validity of this case against CAHN. Regardless of the legal outcome, Canadian voters don't appear to be buying what Patron is selling. He received just 166 votes, or 0.4% of the total ballots in the Saskatchewan riding of Souris Moose Mountain in the recent federal election. Patron has demonstrated such little traction with the voting public that it seems pointless publicity than his trivial Canadian Nationalist Party ever could have hoped to earn on its own. In many cases, the only evidence of hate to be found amongst CAHN's targets is that they question Ottawa's sacred twin ideologies of diversity and multiculturalism, but simply calling for illegal immigrants who have, after all, broken Canada's laws to be deported, as Patron has, is not itself evidence of hate. Neither is engaging in a debate over Canada's annual immigration intake. CAHN's animosity toward Bernier's PPC, whose supporters are, quote, terrible people, close quote, according to Executive Director Balrog, and its pledge to limit immigration nuts now. You guys still with me? All right. This thing is, I don't know if it's getting better or worse, but any party committed to admitting 150,000 immigrants per year, about the same as Australia's annual intake and significantly more than Canada itself welcomed for many years under former Prime Ministers Pierre Trudeau and Brian Mulroney, cannot logically be considered to be anti-immigrant, regardless of who chooses to join the party as a result of such a commitment. Most of the world's countries, in fact, accept almost no immigration at all. Regarding Bernier's criticism of, quote, extreme multiculturalism, close quote, in later years, Pierre Trudeau also came to lament how official multiculturalism has metastasized into identity politics. I think that was the Evan Solomon interview over the Kamloops commie color revolution connection. Yeah, that was all a psyop. And you know what? I was pretty impressed with am I thinking, wait a second, Bernier's Pierre Trudeau also lamented. Okay, not Pierre Trudeau. For a second there, sorry. I got my the Evan Solomon interview. That's not him. That's Jean Chrétien. And Jean Chrétien sort of said the same thing. Like he's like, where did all this come from? Yeah, this is new. This is something new. So plus Bernier's party was recognized by the Federal Leaders Debates Commission as a serious and legitimate entity deserving a place in the national televised events. It is certainly not necessary for a reasonable person to agree with the positions taken by Patron Goldie and soldiers of Odin et al. And in many cases, their claims are embarrassingly naive, delusional, aggressive, or simply plain wrong. To recognize a whole range of views can be aired is dismantled as necessary. Censorship is not the answer to bad ideas. Better ideas are. Amen to that. Instead of engaging or debating, the preferred tactic in aggressive anti-hate movement is to attack. CAHN website boasts that, quote, we convince an art gallery to cancel a People's Party of Canada event in Winnipeg, close quote. How? Via smear tactics that the ugly and other ugly deplatforming techniques. But with a large segment of the Canadian population deeply concerned about the current immigration policy, wildly throwing around claims of, quote, hate, close quote, and neo-Nazism at opponents who merely seek to debate immigration orthodoxies can only coarsen public allegations, so more people awaken to it. Naming and shaming for thee, but not for me. CAHN makes no evident attempt to acknowledge the massive gray area between hotly debated viewpoints and outright hate. Rather, it actively picks sides and ignores the consequences. The group flatly bills itself as a, quote, monitor, close quote, of, quote, right-wing extremist groups, close quote, and then just white supremacist groups, apparently. Warman has explained his purpose is to create, quote, maximum disruption, close quote, for alt-right organizations. As such, CAHN habitually ignores equally egregious activity by the far left. In line with the SPLC, CAHN is also generally avoids attacking the speech or associations of rights of Muslims or Sikh extremists, current allies of white liberals. Yes, that is absolutely true. Yeah, there is this kind of unholy alliance, and who wrote the book? Unholy alliance between the left and Islam going on, that has been going on, especially under the Obama administration. They went full up Islamophile under Obama. I mean, there's a discussion to be had there. I kind of feel like Majid Nawaz is more like the kind of guy who should be prosecuting that. You know, it should probably be a reformation from within. I have my criticisms of a lot of the different doctrines out there, but I digress. Yeah, that is the thing. There's this unholy alliance of people who are extremists, and you know what the common cause is between these people? They're anti-Western. Okay, so that's the left for you. They're allies. Well, I mean, you're only as good as the company you keep, right? And you're looking at, well, what is the common thread that binds them? That's what it is. They're anti-Western. And it's not that all Muslims are, you know, blah, 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 blah. It's the extremist ones, okay? Where they're talking about extremist groups here that the liberals are so cozy with. So CAHN's Perry, and I really think the Sikhs are actually pretty cool. I like that idea of being a warrior in the service of humanity. And that was a big deal when they first came around here in the 90s. I remember they were going to school with their kirpans, and everybody was freaking out. And so I remember I just looked at it, I was like, oh, okay, so they're like Boy Scouts, right? Yeah, I get it. And they think that the human body is sacred, and they don't cut their hair and stuff like that. So they seem like they're pretty good. But even they have their extremist factions, of course, and it has everything to do with Indian politics, and it's over land and so on and so forth. So CAHN's Perry, as well as complaints. CAHN's Perry as well complains about law enforcement agencies' tendency to distinguish between hate groups and terrorist groups. To most people, such a distinction might seem clear and reasonable. In one category are groups holding strong views that many people might find distasteful or even awful, but that don't incite or engage in violence. In the other hate groups planning to and/or carry out attacks. Perry's preference, however, is to blur the difference between the two, thus conflating the holds of views she considers objectionable with illegal activity aimed at destroying Western society. Yeah, so, and the problem with making that conflation is that you're doing more harm than good, right? You're getting people all whipped up into a frenzy. You're getting these witch hunts on the go, and and the amount of harm that you're mitigating by destroying these people is nowhere near on the level what they are suffering. Like we're talking about disagreeing over a public policy issue here. So when presented with the evidence of an apparent hate-related activity that appears to meet or exceeds the flimsy standards applied against foes such as patron, but emanating from the other end of the political and religious spectrum, CAHN seems unable to rouse itself off the couch, let alone commit to a full-on anti-hate or doxing campaign. Consider the group's surprisingly flaccid response to the Islamist activist Jawed Anwar's plans for an Islamic Party of Ontario. While admitting Anwar espouses the sort of hardline religious views about gender and homosexuality that CAHN despises when promoted by white Christian polemicists like Patron or former Ontario Progressive Conservative leadership candidate Tanya Granick-Allen, it brushes off Anwar as an inconsequential distraction. Quote, there are no indications that Islamic Party of Ontario has any support, close quote, reads CAHN's Facebook page. Quote, to make it out to be a significant threat at a present time is fear-mongering, close quote. So they only fear-monger when it's the other side. To principal defender of free speech rights, this statement could seem reasonable on its face. Coming from CAHN, it is remarkable for its hypocrisy. If causing a ruckus about idiosyncratic groups with an insignificant public presence is, quote, fear-mongering, close quote, then CAHN is a banner candidate to be Canada's fear-monger-in-chief. CAHN seems equally unconcerned about the Canadian branch plant operations of the violent Antifa movement or the overt anti-white prejudice of Black Lives Matter. Both organizations are examples of alt-left extremism, no different in principle than alt-right groups CAHN seeks to put out of business, and often far worse in practice. Antifa members are frequently fond of assaulting their opponents in messy counter demonstrations, while BLM prefers civil disobedience that often seems to go slightly too far and at times resulting in serious physical injuries, including to police officers. Didn't they kill like 70 police officers during the Summer of Love, the riots of the Summer of Love? I believe it was in that range. I remember there was one case, it was a black police officer in particular. He was like a police chief, like a pillar of his community, and lived such a good life. And it was just it was so sad, such a sad loss of life or waste of life. The thing I wanted to comment on here, because I was trying to go back to this alt-right, I saw it before. I just wanted to give a little bit of history on the term, and I think I'm going to move on to the next article after this, but go ahead and check these guys out. C2C Journal here. That was, I think they're very thorough. They're quite good. Yeah, and they're calling all the right balls and strikes as far as I can tell. And the thing about alt-right is that was a term that was on the rise prior to the 2016 election. And it was during that campaign that Hillary Clinton, she gave the basket of deplorable speech. So up until that speech, alt-right was something that was being thrown around in the ecosystem. And you know what, as far as I could tell, it just meant, like I lean right, I'm an individualist, I'm a classical liberal, but I'm not supportive of the establishment Republican Party. And it seemed to be, there was a lot of appeal for that, especially with the younger generations. And I remember it was Milo Yiannopoulos, who was the Breitbart editor-in-chief at the time, but he might have just been a contributor, I'm not sure. Anyway, so Hillary Clinton got up there and read a bunch of these hateful article titles off in the basket of deplorable speech, and they were all like Milo Yiannopoulos titles, or a few of them were. And it was just so absurd to be accusing people of being homophobic when this guy himself was a homosexual in a relationship with a black man. And so it was just so absurd, but it stuck. Okay. And that's what they do, is they slap that hate label on a term like alt-right. So the other side never really gets a symbol to rally around. They never get any of their terms. Once they start sticking and everybody's starting to cohere, they come in and they slap this hate label on it, and then people like run away. They stigmatize it. That's what they do, and then people won't associate it with it anymore. And there was this whole thing that went down. What was it? Richard Spencer, is that his name? There's a good guy out there. There's Richard Spencer's the bad one. He's the he was I don't know. He's the guy with one of those haircuts that's just like, as soon as I look at him, I'm like, yeah, something wrong with you. He did a Zig Heil in DC, and everybody in the room went nuts and started Zig Heiling too. And I'm like, that doesn't happen in DC, guys. Like, there's no way. I've never heard of this guy before. And all of a sudden, that's what alt-right means, is it means this guy. And apparently he did say it first, I guess, but I never heard of him. It was very popular. It was all over the place at the time, and nobody ever heard of this guy. And then he's out Zig Heiling in freaking Washington, D.C., which is it's a liberal echo chamber. There's just no way. So that's where that all came from. Alt-right. So alt-right it never used to mean deplorable, and now it does, thanks to Hillary Clinton. So that's the game here, folks. And you know what? I say lean into it. Like, just do the Neo video there with all the labels just kind of bouncing off, and just keep running forward, because like we're never going to be able to get any kind of momentum under us if every time they try to do this we just go, oh no, that's not me, I'm not like that, no, really, I'm this kind of person and that kind of person. No, you turn it around, you put it right back on them, and always double down. I say, when people are gaslighting you and talking down to you like that, just do whatever the hell it is that they're doing to you, turn it around, put it right back on them. Okay, always double down. And I'll do I should do another TTPs podcast sometime soon. But here's Queen Tulsi. Queen Tulsi, I love Tulsi because she does CrossFit. She's a National Guardsman turned politician, Gen Xer. Okay, and this is an update on the from the leadership of the revolution. So I see Tulsi as a very key figure. She's a very strong Gen Xer female and a leader of the revolution. And I love her for calling Hillary Clinton the queen of the warmongers on Twitter. She is just something else. So here she goes.
So it's not surprising that those who reject
God, I
their
hope I have the
leadership
audio.
or views, these are the people who are targeted by Biden's attorney general as domestic.
Yeah, okay, I'm back, and I still have 18 of you with me. It looks like, so I'll keep going. And it's like it just boots me out and lets me right back in. It says it's a connection issue, but it seems to be coming with this kind of apparent regularity now, where I really got to wonder. Kyle, maybe it is CSIS. Who knows? Anyway, or Kyle, Ken, sorry, buddy. So anyway, here's where we left off with Tulsi. Oh, I'll give you Tulsi in 1 sec. Don't forget the audio. All right. Thanks for staying with me there, kids. Let's go. Let's go, Tulsi.
State, if you dare to oppose or even question the president, his administration, or his policies, shut up, step back, fall in line, or we're coming after you. This isn't some theory. This is reality. And this is a reality we're seeing play out in Canada as we speak. You have the autocratic leader in Canada who's resorted to genuinely authoritarian and tyrannical means to suppress a peaceful mass protest against the power elite there. Everything that we see happening up north, everything from the execution of emergency powers to the freezing of bank accounts, the seizure of children from parents, the destruction of livelihoods and small businesses, all of these things could happen here. So the question I ask myself in confronting all this is, what are they so afraid of? Who are they afraid of? You know the answer, it's simple. They're afraid of us. They're afraid of a free people. They're afraid of a free society. I've got to believe that Thomas Jefferson was thinking about these cowardly, fearful leaders when he said they prefer the calm of despotism to the boisterous sea of liberty.
I'm going to throw in on that because this is something that's straight out of Generations, Strauss-Howe generational theory. The thing is that Thomas Jefferson was a nomad Jenner, and he wrote that near the end of his life when he saw the next generation of prophets coming up. That's the thing about the nomad is we get to spend our elderhood feeling abandoned and alone and betrayed. So we fight all the wars, and then the next generation of prophets. So that'll be the one after Gen Z, I guess Gen Alpha. So Gen Alpha is going to be the next generation of boomers. And when I'm old, I'm going to be like, these guys are trouble. And it's the same thing that keeps happening over and over again. And if I'm not mistaken, if my application of the theory is correct, it's the same thing with Socrates. He's abandoned. He's a war veteran. He fought Athens as a young man and lived through the occupation of. He fought for Athens against Sparta, and he lived through. It was this occupation with the Spartans and the 13 families or something. My history is not that good on it, but he. And then after overcoming all of that, he kind of saw the same thing come back again. This is what I gather from the story. It's sophistry. And it's kind of like the language of the mob, and that's what we're hearing right now is this sophistry. It's all emotional, and there's no common yardstick. You got to watch for the common yardstick of empiricism when you're dealing with these people. Like, how do you know that is what started the whole kind of consciousness revolution off that led to the early Enlightenment under the inspiration, I guess, of Socrates and from his teachings. But I digress. That's what it is. Thomas Jefferson is a nomad general like Gen X. And in his late life, that's what he said. He was like Socrates, saying this generation coming up now is full of shit, and watch out for these guys.
Afraid of the freedom.
Unreal, folks. I keep getting kicked out of here, but hopefully I don't have too much more to present. I'm very sorry for the quality of this stream. It's kind of beyond my control right now, but I'll make sure I get it, do what I can to get it cleared away in the next hour before I go live again at 7 or at 1800 Eastern. Yeah, okay, back to Rebel News here in Tulsi. I'll just let her finish off.
Afraid of losing power.
That's exactly it. They're afraid of losing power. They just can't let it go.
Full well the intent of our founders when they wrote in the Declaration of Independence that governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, and that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it's the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute a new government. A government of the people, by the people, and for the people. This is what scares them. And this is what empowers us.
Okay, go away. Yeah, okay, so that's why she's the queen. Go away, Pierre. Okay, I just wanted to touch on Elon Musk before I sign this thing off, because he did this over the weekend. This is December 18th. He does these polls because it's Elon. And, everybody's going crazy, and I love it. It's just like he might be better than Trump at Twitter. Holy smokes, he is one hell of a troll. That's what I'm getting out of this. I think he's doing a great job. I'm very pro Elon. This is, of course, another keeping with the theme here of leaders in the revolution. Okay, it's the Gen Xers, and Elon is one hell of a force to be reckoned with, as far as I can see. And he's a CEO. He's made some enemies. I get it. A lot of people I find have the anti-billionaire stigma. That's something I think that's a result of the psyop of over years and years and years of stigmatizing wealthy people. And also the boomer generation hasn't set a very good example for billionaires. Like, they are the first basically generation of billionaires. They're the richest generation in history, and they're not setting a very good example for our young people, for how highly successful people should behave. And they got wealthy in a very different way than Elon Musk did. Like, they didn't do it contributing technologies, new technologies and stuff like this. He's doing some incredible work engineering wise. Bill Gates never wrote a line of code. Neither did Steve Jobs. All they really did was abuse a bunch of nerds. I was a project manager for the last 10 years, an IT project manager for the last 10 years of my career. I can do that. I can abuse nerds, but you know what? I didn't. And I didn't have to. And Elon, I know he calls people idiots, but it's like they're military generals and very, very high ranking people, that kind of thing. And whenever he really dresses somebody down, one of his subordinates, it's like he's very well known for, if somebody's coming to them and saying, there's no way we can do it on this timeline, and we're not going to be able to meet these critical requirements of the project, and blah, blah, blah. He says, okay, you're off the project. I'll do it. And then he does it. And he's done that every time. Every time he said, okay, I'll do it and I'll meet the deadline. He does it. He does their job for them. So that's leadership, man, right there. I mean, he's very demanding. He's a CEO. He really expects everybody else to just kind of be as intense as he is. And those guys are like that. And I'm willing to accept it if we can get to Mars, because we may need a fallback position. There's nowhere left to run right now, and we're in a lot of trouble. So it says, should I step down as head of Twitter? I will abide by the results of this poll. And he has done this so far with the abiding stuff. And it came back, yes, 57.5%, no, 42.5%. So he's going to abide by this. I expect that he will. He is going to leave Twitter. I don't think he wants to leave Twitter. I think he's going to continue to own it, and he's going to put somebody else in there to manage it. He's just kind of set it up, cleaned it up, gutted it. He fired all of content moderation. I was like, chef's kiss, perfect. Yeah. And they're fleshing out all of these ex-FBI agents and stuff now with the Twitter files. He's releasing them. He hasn't put a timeline on this either. So, who knows when it'll actually, the transition will happen. But he's going to put another manager in there who can kind of take it from here. He gutted it. He cleaned it up. The softwares, all the server rooms and stuff are running better. He was posting all of these, 300 millisecond gains here and there with the network latency and stuff. And I was just like, man, oh man, this guy is, he's very involved. He gets right down in the weeds. He's very detail oriented. So, I mean, I worked with a lot of engineers, and I know the good ones and I see them. Okay. And this guy is a force to be reckoned with. Most of them are just kind of so Asperger's afflicted that you can barely talk to them. They're like Linux, you go up to one of them as a project manager, so I have to go ask them a question. I got better at it over time, but it's like, that's how I came to think of them. They're kind of like Linux. It's like, I go up to them with a question about a project, and he goes, depends. So it's like a syntax error, right? It's like, if you don't put the exact right input in there, you just get syntax error. So that's what a syntax error looks like on a person. It's depends. Okay. What does it depend on? Right. And then it just kind of goes from there. So, but I love those guys. They're good people. That's for sure. And anyway, so he's got he's taken a vote. It says yes, he's going to step down. I fully expect that will happen. I don't know when. He's going to have a good manager come in and take this thing over from here. And this whole exercise was to get Twitter out of the hands of the boomers. The investment class, that's where it all went wrong. That's where all of the tech companies went wrong. They were the most amazing, biggest, most powerful companies in the world in the early to mid 2000s. I mean, 2007, Google was amazing. You get, 40,000 pages of results. Now they're limiting them to something like 40. And back then their motto was don't be evil. But the problem is, what happens is the people who built these corporations, who made them great to begin with, they're no longer in control of them. Okay. So the investment class comes in like all for boomer, all for boomer, all for boomer, all for boomer. And now the YouTube is just the TV, right? It's corporate TV. And that's what it's always been about. They called PewDiePie a white supremacist and a Nazi on network television because they just won't let any of the other generations have any wealth. They won't share at all. They just destroy everything that the younger guys are doing to build wealth because they want it all for themselves. So this is a gambit, okay? Elon's move here is a gambit in in chess, and a gambit is like a sacrifice, right? Usually it's a pawn. The most famous one was a movie there, the Queen's Gambit, because like you never sacrifice your queen, right? It has to be a really slick move if you're going to sacrifice your most powerful piece on the board. But I think what he's doing here is he put this poll out there because this is a honeypot, okay? It draws in all of the bots. They've been flushing those bots like crazy, and there's probably just a few more left out there. They're a little bit more sophisticated. So this is a honeypot to draw them in, okay? And when they do that, they can run the analytics. They can determine, you know, all kinds of things about these different accounts and the way they're being used, like they're just looking at the data. And so I think that's what it is they're going to, this is his last move before he steps aside. He does not want to run the day-to-day of Twitter. I think he likes tweeting, though. I'd like him to keep tweeting. But he wants to go back to SpaceX. You wouldn't believe the stuff they're doing at SpaceX, man. It's incredible. He is really embarrassing NASA. And I'm enjoying his biography so far, his official biography. It's pretty good. Anyway, this is a gambit. It's to flush the remaining bots, the more sophisticated stuff that might be out there. That was a little harder to get with the initial passes. They're dug in a little bit more, so he's got to put this honeypot out there to draw the ticks out. And once they draw them into this thing, they got them. So. That's what I think he's doing here. And, these are good signs. What do I see? What do I got next? That's the full circle there, guys. So I'll, with that, hey, thanks for staying with me. I still got, I'm showing 22 here on the live stream. So, again, apologies for the poor quality of the stream. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with this, but I endeavor to solve it in time for the next one coming up in 1 hour. So we'll see you then, guys. Until then, let's see. I'm getting better at this. Until then, I'll say stay frosty and stay safe.